Hello, I'm Darlene Montgomery, and I am the founder of Soul System Healing. And today I'm going to talk about family constellations, loyalties to family systems, and how that can affect us and hold us back in many different ways. In constellation work, we talk about the loyalty to an ancestor and how that can hold us back and keep us in pain. How it works is that when someone in our ancestry has been overlooked, has been excluded from the family system for some reason, whether it's through miscarriage, abortion, murder, suicide, mental illness, or any other reason, maybe in the war they were missing, or someone who was taken to a war camp and never heard from again. One of my friends, his mother was passed across the hallway in France because the police came up the stairs to take her mother away to the war camps, to the camps. She was Jewish, and she was never heard from again. And that my friend's mother was raised by the neighbors who took her in, and eventually she wound up here in Canada. But there's always been kind of a family secret in his family, and he's always felt unseen, unheard, overlooked, which is often the case in someone whose family member has been excluded in some way. So how it works is that when someone is excluded in the family system, in the ancestral lineage on either side, mother or father, someone who is younger is burdened with their suffering, with their poverty, with their whatever it is that person had in the system is passed down to someone younger until the excluded person is welcomed back into the family system in some way. And this can be done in a variety of different ways, whether it's through a constellation, through a visualization, or another type of welcoming that suits the individual. It doesn't, in my opinion, matter that much because I've done it in a variety of ways, and for me it can work in a number of ways, just through using a visualization and using certain words, soul phrases, truth statements, as they're called in constellation work. But it doesn't really matter. It's more about when we can identify that we are carrying something and then identify where it began. That's a huge step towards release of that burden that we're carrying. And just to give an example, for a couple of years, I was really feeling this kind of trapped feeling, and I was searching for somewhere to go, somewhere to travel to, somewhere to leave where I was living, and I was feeling very trapped in my home. And I was feeling this hopelessness that I could ever leave or find a place where I could feel free. And this just haunted me for a couple of years. In the meantime, my father was in a nursing home, and I noticed that just next to him in the room, just next to him, was a person with the same name as my mother. Now, my father and mother had been separated for, 40 years, maybe even more, 45 years. So it's a long time ago that they were divorced. But my dad's room was just next to a person with my mother's maiden name. And I didn't really pay attention to it too much because to me, I thought it was just kind of humorous or odd or ironic that he happened to be next to this person. And I found out eventually that this person had Huntington's disease. I didn't really give that too much thought either until one day I was sitting at home and I was doing a meditation. I was sitting there and I was feeling this very, very deep trapped feeling. And all of a sudden I heard kind of my inner voice, my inner guides kind of laughing, and they're saying, "We made this so easy for you by having this person next door." And I suddenly remembered my uncle, Frank, who had the same name as the person next door, and that my uncle Frank had Huntington's disease as well. And I remembered that he had taken my mother on cruises towards the end because he was trying to still experience the freedom, even though his body was shutting down, and slowly his body became a prison for him. And in the end, my Uncle Frank was actually, the last time I saw him was in a room in a nursing home, just curled up in a ball. And he died a few weeks later, just miserable, unhappy, tortured person. And the ironic thing is that my uncle was a sailor, and he had wanted to take my mom on a cruise and my other aunt because it for him represented freedom. And on the last cruise he even fell down because his body had just begun to not serve him anymore. So in that visualization that evening, I welcomed my Uncle Frank back into my family, because when my Uncle Frank had died, he was kind of excluded, and nobody had done a memorial, a funeral. No one had acknowledged him in the least. It was really tragic. And I welcomed my Uncle Frank in my vision. I welcomed him with a full heart into our family. I gave him love and honor, and I said, "I see you, and I honor you, and I welcome you." And the most ironic and fascinating thing was just about an hour later, my cousin posted a picture of my Uncle Frank. Now, this is after 15 years that my uncle had been already passed away. He posted a picture of my Uncle Frank in his sailor uniform, and then proceeded to post a picture for the next 3 days of my Uncle Frank in different sailor garb that he had worn as a very young soldier of maybe sorry, of about 22. And I just was fascinated and thrilled to see how quickly this had reversed, not only for him, but for me. And I felt this freedom after that, an extreme freedom from this tortured feeling I'd had of being trapped in my home and in my own body. And it was very much living proof for me that the idea of ancestral suffering is very real, and that a lot of the time the things that we're feeling and experiencing never started with us. And as Mark Wallen writes in his book, or the title of his book, "It Didn't Start With You." And I believe that a lot of the times these things that we suffer with, poverty and struggle and strife, really do not start with us. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like it. And my website is www.lifedreams.org, and I do provide various services where I help to free people from the suffering, poverty, pain, and trauma that they've been carrying. And I use a variety of modalities to do that. But my basic system now is called Soul System Healing, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.